Hi there, it's Gula from Gula Tech Adventures. Today we're going to discuss the Gartner's predictions. There are 8 cybersecurity predictions for 2022 and the years onward. They put out a press release in June of 22 talking about their 8 predictions. We're going to discuss them today. If you haven't read it, you can put your camera up here and pause it and get the URL if you want to do that. So the first thought was that through 2023, government regulations requiring organizations to provide consumer privacy rights will cover 5 billion citizens and 70% of the GDP. And what does this mean for you? What does this mean for cyber investors and whatnot? It means that organizations are going to be increasingly concerned about who has access to data, particularly customer data. And this is a good thing. The more organizations on the inside think about sensitive data, who can have access to that data, who can mix that data with other things, it's going to be harder for people to get access to it. We always hear about people putting S3 buckets putting data out on S3 buckets by mistake. It's because we don't have a sense of data care. I'm going to say that a couple times on this thing. The average person just doesn't think that the data and the code they're doing is that important. But this sort of regulations is going to move the industry forward. So I'm pretty happy with this. So the second comment is that by 2025, 80% of enterprises will adopt a strategy to unify their web, cloud, and private application access from a single vendor's SSE platform. So basically, this is we're all going to use brokers to get to where we need to go. And this is an interesting concept, right? So the name brand right now, recording this in July of 22, is Zscaler. And the concept is I'm going to authenticate, I'm going to get into some sort of virtual private network, some sort of cryptographic mesh that's going to then allow me to go to where I need to go. And this is a little bit different from their next prediction, which basically says 60% of organizations are going to embrace zero trust. And most people are going to fail at doing that, right? So if I go back to the second prediction, if you think about the world in terms of web-based applications and authenticating users to get there, if all this is going over SSL and TLS, why do I need a VPN to do that? Why can't I just implement good policies and do that? But a lot of organizations are moving towards zero trust. I think that's an interesting, I say zero trust when it comes to this as well. I think a lot of these technologies are very similar in that. Anyway, the prediction is 80% of the organizations are going to be going to their applications and private applications, over that kind of network. On the inside, though, of these networks, and inside's a relative term these days because everybody's working from home and whatnot, organizations, Gartner's predicting everybody's going to try to do some sort of zero trust architecture, but they're going to fail. And I recorded a video on zero trust. I use zero trust to talk a little bit about going to the applications that I want to go to in the cloud and also the places I want to go to on my network. It might be different tech, but to me, it's the same thing. It's the same security policy. Only authorized people who authenticate correctly to where they're supposed to go should be going there in the first place. What I think is interesting in this is that Gartner says half of us are going to fail. And my point is, if you've got bad policies, bad practice, bad culture when it comes to security and access control and data control, just sprinkling some cryptography or a cool zero trust vendor on top of that is not going to fix it. Number 4, by 2025, 60% of organizations will use cybersecurity risk as a primary determinant when conducting business with third parties. I do not believe this, especially here in America. We have a culture of transparency, but we have not, and we have a lot of laws that reward transparency, but we do not have a culture of turning away from bad practice from cyber. It just hasn't. When people get hacked, we go shop there later. When our big brands that are too big to fail, when they get hacked, we still use them. And I really have a hard time believing this. And the evidence I have against this, if you look at the government's experience where the DoD is using the purchasing power to try to force vendors that are selling business to the DoD with a program called CMMC. The pushback was, hey, this is too much, right? So if it's too much for me to care about cybersecurity, I'm certainly not going to care about it if I've got some issues here. And I also think, I think the third-party risk vendors are doing a great job, but they're merely scratching the surface. If somebody detected a phishing with an email from a corporation or perhaps a botnet coming from an IP from that might be data that's 10 years old and not really relevant. or it might have been an impact from a system that's not that relevant to a system. It's really hard to make this kind of decision. Number 5, through 2025, 30% of nation states will pass legislation that regulates ransomware payments, fines, and negotiations. This is really important because right now, if you have no security and no defenses against ransomware, and your plan is to just pay the ransomware, well, if the government takes that off the table for you, you're going to be between a rock and a hard place. So this should really be encouraging people to do ransomware protection, do continuous monitoring, do the things they need to do to stay secure, and not do that. Perhaps even cyber insurance is going to lead the way here as well. I conceive of a future here where your cyber insurance provider might be saying, pay the ransomware, and your government, your state, or your city might be telling people you can't do that. That's illegal. So that's certainly an interesting times. Number 6, by 2025, threat actors will have weaponized operational technology environments successfully to cause human casualties. Now, this is another one that I'm going to say there's more informed people out there than I am. But my experience out there is that OT systems, although you have these computers that are controlling these operational technology systems, my experience to date has been there's usually some sort of physical safety switch, some sort of physical prevention to make sure that the dam doesn't open or the generator doesn't blow up, or that just because somebody resets the altimeter when the airplane's landing doesn't mean the plane is going to crash into the ground. There's a pilot there. So my point is, are there some attacks out there that are probably going to cause some problems? Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like on the scale of a major Hollywood movie, though, or something. I think there's going to be few and far between, because most people who design these systems, they design with a lot more care and thought and reliability than the typical people who are in IT. Number 7, by 2025, 70% of CEOs will mandate a culture of organizational resilience. Now, I think this is great. If you track everything we do at Gula Tech Adventures and the Gula Tech Foundation, you know that we care very deeply about corporate governance and trying to bring cybersecurity and technology risk into those discussions. So I really think this is great. I also think the term resilience is really good because that can mean a lot of different things. And here they talk about surviving threats from cybercrime, severe weather events, civil unrest, and political instability simultaneously. And this is the world we're living in. This is the world we have to go to. Fortunately, for me reading 30 years of science fiction has kind of prepared me for these kind of things. And I think the rest of the world is kind of catching up with the fact that we're going to go from supply chain issues one day to viruses and outbreaks the next day to actual maybe nation state cyber attacks. And we have to have a culture of resilience to do that. And this means we have to rely on our IT technology the way OT people rely on their technology for reliability. We can't just kind of let people have the addictions of any software they want and any technology platform they want. We have to really be thinking about how can we be resilient to suffer these attacks all at the same time. And lastly, number 8, this is my favorite on the list. By 2026, 50% of C-level executives will have performance requirements related to risk built into their employment contracts. I'm very happy about this. Again, just like I mentioned with number 7, this is cyber corporate governance. This is technology risk governance. This is boards basically telling their CEO that they need to take cybersecurity seriously. And it's not just cybersecurity, it's risk. And risk can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. The point is that the boards and the executives have to make these risk decisions. A lot of the problems we're having in the cybersecurity industry right now is that these critical decisions about what risk we're accepting, what risk we're protecting is being done at too low of a level and not with the knowledge of the board and the senior executives. Once again, if you want to read the full Gartner report, I would encourage you to read this, come up with your own thoughts on it. But if you enjoyed this, we've got other videos here on this channel. Once again, this is Ron Gula from Gula Tech Adventures. Have a great day.